So, guys,
I got a puppy.
Isn't he cute? Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. If you hear a fan buzzing in the background, it's because it's been in like the 80s to 90s all week and I am simply frying right now. But today I'm going to be doing a nice light tag. It's the beginning of June. I'm overwhelmed with my TBR. I'm currently reading like 5 books and trying to like finish a lot of things. On Saturday, I will be wrapping up all the books that I read in May. This is the 6 Tudors book tag, or the Tudor Queen's book tag. I've seen it called both. So I originally saw it on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and then like a day later after I saw hers, and I was like, I'm really going to do this. I was actually tagged by Nikki from Red Dot Reads, so I was like, oh, well, now I have to do it. But this was originally created by Emily from Novelle Novels, Gemma from Gem of Books, and Danny from Danny's Book World. And I will link all their videos for the book tag down below. So basically the whole point is to look at Henry VIII's 6 wives. And use that as a tag, which is interesting because I haven't read that much Tudor history, even though I do enjoy learning about it and I love Shakespeare. So I feel like I should learn more about it, but I haven't. So yeah, we'll see in the future. So I have 7 books here and 7 prompts. So let's get into it. Prompt number 1, Katherine of Aragon, a book that was your first love. I was thinking of doing The Magic Tree House by Mary Pope Osborne because I read so many of those, but for me that was like a whole series and it was more formative because it was a series and less of like one specific book. So instead, I'm going to go with The Frog Princess by E.D. Baker. I remember this was like one of the first teen books I read. I was probably about 8 or 9 when I first read this, and it got me into this like deep love for fairy tales, as well as I think a love of history, because even though it's set in a vaguely fantasy world, it is a medieval world. So I really got interested in the Middle Ages when I was quite young, and then that transferred over to the Victorian era later on in my teenage years. So yeah, I would say that this book is my first love. Number 2, Anne Boleyn, a book with a manipulative character. So this one, I picked an interesting choice. I picked Empress Cixi from Imperial Woman by Pearl S. Buck. Here's the thing. I think when we hear manipulative, we think negative things. Like, a manipulative character isn't a good character. But this book kind of breaks that stereotype. Empress Cixi manipulated a lot of people to gain power. Like, she worked years to work herself up from just an average emperor's concubine all the way to being the Empress of China. There's a lot to admire about her. And it's also an interesting commentary on, does one have to be manipulative and not exactly moral in order to gain power? Does becoming powerful necessarily mean that you had to do bad things to get where you are? It's an interesting commentary, because even though she did a lot of bad things and manipulated a lot of situations to come out on top and to gain power, she did a lot of good things for China as well. So it's a tough choice to make, because, and that's what I loved about this book, is Empress Cixi isn't evil, but she's also not exactly good. So yeah, I thought she fit as a manipulative character, but one that is very nuanced as well. The next one is Jane Seymour, a book that delivered what you wanted. I actually just finished this a couple days ago, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I've had this on my book list, on my TBR, for possibly a decade, maybe more. I've been wanting to read this for years, but it is also 700 pages, so I've been avoiding it, and I forced myself to read it this month, and boy am I glad that I did, because this book was absolutely amazing, and it was everything I was expecting. I was afraid because it is so hyped as one of the greatest classics of all time. I was really concerned that it wouldn't meet expectations, especially since I have such a deep love of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I wasn't sure if another of his books could trump Crime and Punishment. And I do think I like them the same amount, so I don't think this one is necessarily better than Crime and Punishment. Maybe that's a controversial opinion, but I do think it is just as good as Crime and Punishment, and it is quite different. So I love this book, and it did meet my expectations. And it was exactly what I wanted. Next one is number 4, Anne of Cleaves, a book that wasn't what you expected. For that, I'm going to go with The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I did a full review of this book, but basically I was expecting it to be a medieval murder mystery, and instead it was much more of a philosophical and theological debate amongst the characters, and much deeper than I was expecting. Nothing wrong with that, but definitely not what I was expecting. I still love this book though. The next one is number 5, Katherine Howard, a book that irritated you. This is another one I read this month, or last month I should say, in May, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I just don't think Emily Henry is for me. I read her book People We Meet on Vacation, and I think I gave that 3 stars, so I might have liked it slightly better because I did like the friendship. I just really hated the romance. And in this one, the characters were okay. I actually liked the drama between the main character and her sister, but the romance was so horrible, and it really irritated me. Especially the main character irritated me at a lot of points. Like, her decision making was just horrible half the time. So yeah, I think I gave this 2 stars, and it irritated me. Number 6, Katherine Parr, a book published after the death of the author. And I looked this up because I wasn't quite sure like which books I'd read that were published posthumously after the death of the author. And I realized that Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen was actually published in December of 1817, and Jane Austen actually died in July of 1817. So it was published after her death, which is fascinating because Northanger Abbey in many ways is the most lyrical and light of her books. Like, yes, it has deep themes, but Katherine is just like a light, sweet protagonist. She's not quite as like clever and mature as a lot of the other protagonists that Jane Austen has. Hello. Hi. Isn't Loki adorable? Oh, I didn't tell you guys. His name is Loki. Yeah. He's a Maltese, about a year old. Some of our friends had elderly relatives that couldn't take care of him anymore, so we were like, yes, we'll take him. Yes, we will. But back to this. Northanger Abbey, great book, and I did not know it was published after her death. Last one is Henry VIII, because we can't ignore like the horrible husband of the 6 wives, okay? And that is a chunky book that you hated. I had to look this up because I'm pretty sure like the majority of big books I've read and finished, I've enjoyed. You know, War and Peace, The Arabian Nights, Les Mis by Victor Hugo. Like, there's so many great big ones that I've read. And so I had to look on my Goodreads because I was like, I'm not even sure that I've read a big chunky book that I disliked. And I did. There was a series, the Gemma Doyle series. Like, the first 2 books were very average to me, but they weren't bad. And I read these when I was like a teenager. So I was probably like 14 or something when I was reading these. But the last book, The Sweet Fair Thing, was 800 pages. I was surprised because I was like, I didn't remember it being that long, but the other 2 books were like 400 pages. So yeah, the last book was a lot longer, and I hated it. I do not remember a lot of details about it, but I remember not being a big fan of the series. But yeah, that is a relatively long, chunky book. You know, 800 pages is pretty long. That I really didn't like. But most long books, like, either I DNF them early on because I'm like, why would I waste my time reading a book I'm not enjoying if it's like 800 pages? So there is the tag. I don't think I'm going to tag anybody. Have you read any of these books? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe. I post every Saturday and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye! You're gonna say bye, Loki? Yes, your boy. What you doing up on my chair? What are you doing up on my chair? Oh. Say bye, Loki. Bye, Loki. Would you good boy? Is you good boy? Yeah, yeah. He's like, I don't like being held. I don't like being held. No, I don't like being held. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm leaving now.